All right, so today we have as our special guest Jeff Braylio, the real estate attorney who's going to be on the show today, talking about seller financing. You know, with this uncertainty of the market, there are so many loan packages that have been discontinued that used to be available, you know, just earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, but no longer exist. So seller financing could be a phenomenal opportunity for a lot of people to be able to utilize when purchasing a home. So if you've ever heard about the term seller financing, you've ever thought about how does it work, you're definitely gonna wanna stay tuned to today's show because, like I said, the real estate attorney himself, who's an expert at seller financing, is going to be discussing and breaking it down for all of you guys. Test. Do you mind talking in the
Test.
Thanks, perfect. All these things that I have to do before we get ready to go live. And so I just go through this checklist in my head to make sure all it's prepped. Commercial's ready to go, mic check has been done, recording is ready to go live onto the radio so you guys can hear it in your cars is ready to go, camera's ready to go. Now we just need the guests to arrive and for the show to start. Jeff Braylio! How are you, buddy? I think they're supposed to put commercials here, but they forgot.
Oh.
And I've told them, but I mean, every week there's nothing there, so I just always play this song. Yeah, 3 minutes of literally dead air. The first time I recognized, I was just sitting here, and all of a sudden I was like, waiting for the commercial to kick on, waiting. I was like, oh, I better play something. 16:40 a.m. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki. Our special guest is real estate attorney Jeff Braylio. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, good morning and thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. Today's topic, guys, is seller financing. Now, you probably heard the term before. You may or may have not heard the term before, but for those of you who have heard the term before, you're probably wondered, how's it structured? How does it go down? And you know, with so much uncertainty in the world right now, there have been a lot of loan packages that have been discontinued that were, you know, available just as early as this year, and they no longer exist. So I have a feeling that seller financing will be a phenomenal opportunity in the next 12 to 24 months for a lot of people to be able to purchase homes. So
Yeah, and sell.
And sell.
So you have to remember seller financing from both the seller perspective and the buyer perspective.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
And there are a lot of sellers that, especially if they lose their job or have a downgrade in pay, can't make mortgage,
Right.
Find themselves in financial trouble, need to move. This could be a good opportunity, especially if they're thin on their equity in the house.
Yep.
And the market downturn, they can't sell their house for any equity, and they can't sell on the open market.
Right.
Seller financing is an option for sellers to be able to relieve themselves of a burden and pass the house on to somebody who can manage it.
Very great point. Very great point.
Seller financing in the real estate investor world is a very large topic.
Mm-hmm.
So it covers a lot of ground. It covers a lot of types of transactions. And so there's really kind of four main ways of seller financing. Broadly speaking, seller financing is anytime the seller helps out the buyer in purchasing the house.
Got it.
Right? It could be helping finance a portion of the house or partner with them on the house. In some way, the seller is helping the buyer either get into or manage the property, and there's some relationship between the buyer and the seller. Because in most retail transactions, you know, the seller sells the house to the buyer,
Yep.
and after closing, the seller literally disappears. They can go
Disappears.
anywhere they want, never matter, because there's no more relationship with the buyer. The buyer gets the house and goes on their merry way.
Right.
But in seller financing, there's going to be this relationship that exists between the buyer and the seller, even after the closing or
Right.
after the transaction.
Gotcha. Perfect. And usually it's primarily because the current loan that was in place when the seller owned it stays in place, right?
Yeah, well, that if there's a couple of variations on
Okay.
that. So sometimes the seller might own the house outright,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And the seller is, maybe concerned about capital gains taxes,
Yes.
right? If
Yes.
the amount of equity in the house is greater than $250,000 or $500,000, those capital gains tax exemptions,
Right.
they may be concerned about a tax burden,
Yeah.
or they could be looking for some extra income.
Right.
And if they finance the portion of the purchase price to the buyer, they can actually make interest income and make more than actually what they sold the house for. So they can make more money.
Right.
There's a lot of benefits to the seller.
Yes.
That may encourage the seller to sell or finance a deal, even if they have no mortgage.
Right.
And sometimes if they do have a mortgage and equity even,
Yeah.
there are ways that the seller can make more money or avoid taxes by doing a seller financing transaction and even leaving that mortgage in place.
And here's what I love about you, Jeff, is not only do you...
I'm so glad you love me.
Yes,
I love
yes.
you too, Yoshi.
Thank you. Not only are you super experienced in knowing these documents as a real estate attorney, but you're also the real estate investor.
Mm-hmm.
So you know these things from the investor's point of view, which is somebody coming to you for investing help, as well as the attorney's point of view, which is great because we have this belief that if you're going to hire a power team, a real estate agent, contractors, attorneys, insurance agents, it's nice when all of them also invest because they kind of know what your goal is as well,
Right.
versus an insurance agent who doesn't. We had Lance Polson on the show explaining insurance, and he has a portfolio of rentals, and he flips houses, and so I like dealing with him because he knows exactly what my goals are versus an insurance agent who's never helped anybody do a flip or anything like that.
Yeah, my first project was over 20 years ago now. I think I'm in my 21st year.
Wow.
It was a flip project that I screwed up so badly that I was going to lose money on the flip.
Yeah.
And instead of losing money, I had to turn it into a rental for 2 years.
Yeah.
And get a little bit of appreciation and with the tax benefits of holding a long-term rental.
Right.
Yeah, I just didn't know what I was doing.
Right. Right.
There was no show like this 20 years ago, 1999, that tell me how to do a flip appropriately to make money.
Right.
And I was flying blind.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of mistakes. In the next I think I made $10,000 and I did all the work myself. I'm like, holy cow, this was a waste of time.
Right.
My hourly was like
$12.
$12 an hour because I did all the work. I'm like, how are people making money in real estate?
Right.
This is not working.
It's so true.
And then I started hitting more other real estate investing educational opportunities, more experienced investors, and watching and learning from them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so true. I've had a client call me once and he goes, hey, I really want to start flipping. I've been looking on Realtor.com. I'm sending you a link. What do you think this would be a good flip? And first of all, it's on the MLS if it's on Realtor.com, right? So it pops up. And, I didn't pull comps, but I just kind of know the area already because I pull a lot of comps. And so I asked him real quickly, what about this house attracts you to wanting to do it as a flip? And he says, well, the price is low. And it was relative to everything else. But the price was not flip low, right? By the time you renovated it, you were at market value, and then you would be negative. Exactly.
Costs and stuff like closing costs.
Yeah, so had he called, let's say, somebody who had no experience in flipping to do the analysis with him on the phone to have him realize, he may have bought that, right? May have. I don't know if he would have. But when he showed me the property, I said, well, here's the analysis. And then when we broke down the analysis, whoa, I wasn't even close. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And the key what we're talking about is, those lease options, contract for deed, traditional seller financing, partnering with a seller.
Yeah.
The more options you know about, the more you can provide the seller. Like in that deal, if you run the numbers, okay, this is really going to work with as a flip.
Right.
You could start looking at maybe partnering with the seller.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or other options. If you
Exactly.
leave the seller financing in place, will that make the deal work?
Right.
So it's about the tools in your tool belt that you can pull out when discussing things with the seller to make the deal actually happen, and make it work and solve everybody's problems and make it a win-win.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, perfect. REI, Real Estate Investing, Mastery, and then U as in university, reimasteryu.com. If this is something that you want to learn, maybe pick up your dream home or become an investor to utilize this strategy, definitely check out Jeff's seminar that he's got coming up in September. And on that note, I hope everybody has a spectacular rest of the day. Perfect. Awesome, buddy.
That was a good one.
Yeah, that was
a really, really good one.
So we just got done doing the radio show with Jeff Braley, the real estate attorney, and we discussed seller financing today, which I think is going to be a very, very hot strategy here in the next 12 to 24 months that both sellers and buyers are going to be able to utilize depending on one situation. Sellers may find that this is what's the best way to sell their home. buyers might find that this is the best way for them to be able to buy a home. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity here, you know, with all this uncertainty in the market, with all of the people predicted to be evicted, to be foreclosed on due to not being able to make their payments, due to not being able to work, due to the coronavirus. Seller financing is something that I think could be a very good idea to get educated on. And Jeff talked about how he has a seminar coming up in September. Highly recommend checking it out, www.reimasteryu.com. Other than that, Jeff talked about a lot of phenomenal stuff on, from an attorney's point of view, the legalities of seller financing. So if you missed this show live on radio that we just got done doing, go to www.utahhomesweethome.com. Scroll down to the bottom, click on the YouTube link. We film all these shows, so you'll be able to watch it. I highly recommend checking out this particular episode if you are thinking that you may want to entertain getting educated on seller financing. Thanks so much for watching, and if you guys like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, don't